we're going to be talking about how much influence can a career sponsor have on your opportunities. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Nadia Lopez. She's the founding principal of Mott Hall Bridges Academy, a school in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York. And she is also, in fact, we met because she is a Varkey Teacher Ambassador. She's going to introduce herself a little more, but there are a few things that I'm going to share. She is the author of the book, Bridges to Brilliance, co-author of Teaching in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and she also has a TED Talk, which I can highly recommend, entitled, I Opened a School to Close a Prison. So, Nadia, is there anything more that we need to know about you today? Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Karen. No, I think that sums it up, and I'm sure during our conversation, people will get to learn more about who I am and the things that I've accomplished.
How lovely. So, can you please define, I always like to start with a definition. Please define career sponsor and mentor before sharing the importance of both in elevating your career.
So I'll give you the quick short version. The mentor is the person who helps you to grow, while the sponsor is the person who helps gets the door open for you. And so it's very important to know the difference, because this mentor stays with you for a longer period of time, not a lifetime, but during a certain time period in your life that you need growth, and someone who can help you aspire to where you want to go. The sponsor actually is the one who can open up the doors and get you into the places that you want to be, and will speak on your behalf even when you don't know that they're doing that.
That's a great definition. So, just the importance of both of them really in elevating your career.
So I've had both, and I've had several mentors in different spaces for whatever capacity that I've needed. And we also need to just identify that sometimes mentors are coaches that you invest and pay for as well. But I've had many mentors to get me through my current career as a principal, and as I think about what I can manifest next or what things I'm interested in, I've found people in those particular spaces that have helped me to see the bigger picture, start planning accordingly, and make some connections. Whereas the sponsor, like today, I literally had a call before this call where someone heard about my work and wanted to support what we were doing at the school. And so you want to think of the person who connected me to this person who wants to provide a resource. That was the sponsor, because I had no idea that they were ever speaking on my behalf, made a connection, but that person then gives resources. So whether it's for myself or someone else, that sponsor has been there. And I will say that 90% of my success has come from either one of those individuals in my life.
And do you want to say a little bit more about sponsor? You know, sometimes we believe that you have to be at the beginning of your career, but actually the importance of having a career sponsor and or a mentor, an executive coach, whoever, somebody who is you know, helping you to progress through these glass ceilings, the importance of having one all the way through your life.
Yeah, I think that what people need to understand, oftentimes, so one, your mentor can change. I've had mentors in the very beginning of my career, as far as when I was a teacher. I was starting out into a career. And those same individuals did not continue to be my mentor, because then when you grow to get to a next place in your life, sometimes you outgrow the person. So what they have to offer, they can no longer sustain you or allow you to be sustained in that space. So I've had different mentors to come into my life. But what I guess I want those who are watching to understand is that you don't grow in isolation, you grow in relationships. And it is okay to have a mentor, and it is okay to have someone sponsor you, because in this world, everything is about relationships. And it's also important just for me to point out that it does not mean that you're not capable. It just means that you need additional assistance. You need an opportunity to get to the next level with someone who already has that expertise. So you have to be open. You have to be very reflective. Sometimes you have to know what you want. And even if you don't know what you want, you can speak to what you don't know what you want, but what you can speak to what you don't know yet what you want, but the things that you are completely sure that you do not want in your life. And that helps you navigate, because I think that I've said that one of my responsibilities as someone who has achieved a lot in my life, it's so important that I help to mentor someone. So I've been a mentor where I've actually helped grow someone to where they needed to be. But I've also been a sponsor because I meet so many people, and a lot of folks that I meet, it has nothing to do with the career that I'm presently in, right? I can meet someone in the tech space, I can meet someone in the fashion space. That's not a place that I occupy all day, every day. But I do know individuals who love fashion, who would love an intern or would love a mentor in that particular industry. So if I know that person, then I take it upon myself to make sure to connect them.
And so where do you find a career sponsor? Where do you find a mentor?
I mean, it can happen any place. A couple of places that I would say is one. So if you're in school, you can find a mentor or a sponsor in school. If you are online under Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you should start following some of these individuals who are within that industry. And the one great thing about social media is that you don't have to have a direct phone number to the person, but that could be your Rolodex, right? So you send them a direct message, or if you're on Twitter and you send them a tweet, right? And there are people who are just bold and said, I would love to meet you, or I've heard about your work. Because people also like praise and accolades and know that you are actually interested in them and not just a one-way street where you're just all about gimme, 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 but you don't know anything about me. So what's important is you take the opportunity to connect with people, and you will find that you can get a mentor that way. I've been bold enough to just walk up to people. So for me, Karen has been my mentor, right? As much as I'm in education and people may see all the accolades, there was a part of education that I wasn't really well versed at in terms of the international perspective. Because when you're in the United States, we can be really, really ignorant to what's happening. And it's also because we're controlled by the media that we see. And so I needed to lean on Karen without knowing I was going to lean on her. But all I did was walk up to her because I heard her speak, and I was so captivated by how she carried herself. And so I literally went up to you after the meeting when nobody else was paying attention, and I introduced myself. I had one of my books, and I was just like, I'm so grateful to all that you're doing. And it was in particular for young Black girls, speaking of those who had escaped being kidnapped in Africa. And so I was just in awe, and I needed that opportunity to say that to you. And ever since then, it's been 3-4 years that you and I have developed this friendship, but I still lean on Karen to put me on to all things education that's happening beyond the United States.
And you can have multiple mentors. You know, I in fact, when you had your Elevated conference last year in New York, I sat next to one of your mentors. So you can have a few on the, you know, bobbling along. Maybe there'll be times where you don't have anything, but you know, tell me about how many is appropriate, when, who, what.
I don't think there's a number, right? And I don't think that we should limit ourselves with that. I probably at this point have 5 mentors, because everyone fits a different like aspect of my life. So, you know, and the mentors, like I have 2 coaches I literally pay for myself. One particular coach is just, I am an Aquarius. And if you know anything about zodiac signs, we think really, really big. We have a lot of grand ideas, and we can start 20 different things. And I need someone to reel me in and say, you need to plan, because I'll execute them all, but I won't necessarily take the time to plan them as well as I should, and then be stressed out at the end. So I have someone who helps me to realize the things that I want to accomplish and be intentional about how I spend my time, leverage resources. And so this way I can be more in control of my time and what I feel like is a priority. I have another coach that, you know, I'm always on social media, but I don't really pay attention to aesthetics of things, the whole, you know, Canva and how you can create an ebook, blah, blah, blah. Like there's just so much that goes on with social media and creating other opportunities for yourself that can generate income. So there was someone that I know, her name is Sable, and Sable is part of At Real Brown Girls. And Sable, she supports women in trying to create their own entrepreneurship endeavors. So I reached out to her. She actually worked at my school with scholars. She's done workshops. And I was like, I need your help for me. So I pay her and I meet with her and we have coaching sessions. Verda is a coach to me. That's the person that you met.
Right.
She and I are constant. Like we now started the collective. So every week on Wednesdays, we have a conversation on Facebook Live. And it allows us to talk about education. So while she's my mentor, we now work in a capacity as colleagues. She started off as a coach when I got into the principalship. I already named you, Aaron, as somebody that I look towards as a mentor. And then I have a spiritual mentor. So before the call that came in that someone wanted to help the school, I go to my pastor. And so I'm really grateful for that because I'm grounded in my faith. And sometimes in this world, we're so filled with distractions and it's hard, especially right now, sometimes to even hear God. And so I had to just lean on him. And because he knows me and he knows my heart, you know, he's taken time out of his schedule to just meet with me the past couple of days, especially as I'm making important decisions and transitioning. So those are the 5 people.
That's fantastic because I can see at the back of you, there is a vision board. And, you know, you alluded to the fact that you have so many dreams and so many aspirations and ambitions. And actually one of the ways in which you, I suppose, visualize that would be on your vision board. Do you want to talk about your vision board for a moment? And also, I believe you might have a vision book. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So I am what you call a visionista. And if you look on my LinkedIn account, my title is Chief Visionary Officer. And I take that very seriously because I feel that you can manifest all the things that you want simply by putting it down and making it plain. So I learned the power of visioning really in 2003 when I became a career changer, through when I became a teacher. And when I started out with a journal. So I'm just gonna let you all understand that I have several journals. I'm a fanatic. So this is my journal that I write in every single night or every single morning, if I can remember. Sometimes I get so overwhelmed. And then this is like where I keep notes and keep tabs of the things that I wanna manifest. And so if I meet with people, if I'm working on something, I have to put it in this journal. And I'm going to explain to you why I have to have a working journal for the things that I want to manifest, because let me try to show you all. So if you see here, this was my very first vision board. And if you see the Lopez effect here, this is my brand. But I actually got the name The Lopez Effect from a magazine cover that I found in 2007 at a hair salon. It was a glamour magazine and it was pertaining to Jennifer Lopez. And the story was about how she was a triple threat. And I said, I want to be a quadruple threat in education. So I cut it out and I laminated it and I kept it for myself. And literally I would carry it around and people thought I was obnoxious and thought that I had wrote the name for myself. But I was like, no, someone saw it in someone else. And I know I see it in myself, so that's why I'm going to keep it. And then eventually what I did was I created this board. But the problem with this board is I was writing so many of the flowery words. So like I have radiant, metamorphosis, dreamy, gifted, new chapter. But I wasn't speaking into existence the things that I wanted in my life. So that was 2011, and nothing happened. I didn't manifest a thing. The Lopez effect really hadn't taken off in terms of me creating that into anything. So then 2012, I got a coach around visioning. And the coach was like, you have to be more specific. So here's my vision board from 2014. It's a little crumpled up, but that's because she's been through a lot, but I've manifested things. So here I had a picture of Oprah, and I didn't want to be Oprah. So Oprah and I are actually born on the same day, January 29th, not the same year. But I wanted to convey her presence. I wanted to be able to impact people's life and have influence and inspire. So I put her in the middle, and then I have the word centerpiece that's here. And then what I also did was I wrote down that I was gonna write a book. I was gonna launch my company, The Lopez Effect, and that I was gonna start blogging. And then I had the audacity to write out a check that I would get from my first book. And then I wrote all the things that I needed to accomplish to make that happen. And then over here, I talked about health and all the things that I needed to do. And I'm going to tell you this, 2012 passed and nothing happened. So then I was like, I don't think I was specific enough. So I created another vision board. Okay. So in this vision board, I found the magazine, Forbes magazine, and I was very interested in it because the first thing was, it was the philanthropy issue and it had to do with education. But nobody on this page was an educator. And if they were speaking about Black people, they were only of African, like they were straight from Africa, you know, one of the countries in Africa, but there was no one from the US. So I was like, how is this possible? Why were we never part of the conversation? So I cut out the strip because it was also, the Forbes magazine was in Brownsville, and Brownsville is one of the poorest neighborhoods in New York City. So the mere fact that there was a Forbes magazine in this neighborhood, I was just like, I think this is fake, and this is someone's trying to tell me something. So I cut it out, and then I wrote, there is power in education. I will change the world, right? And all I wrote was, it was going to come through a social network, and that as you develop your strategy, a vision is needed that inspires, and then innovation that works, blah, 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 blah. So this was December 20th, I think I did it. And I'm going to tell you, there's a little secret in here. If you look at it really closely, you see there's a picture of me. I put myself in the middle of these people. I found a dress, a blue dress that I had on IG, and I put my own caption, and it says, Nadia Lopez, innovative leader in education who invests, informs, and inspires children. And I left this vision board in my office, and every single day I would just sit there and watch the vision board, and I would just work hard at wanting to change the world through my work. And some of it was subconscious, because I wasn't every day like, Lord, please, I want to change the world. I didn't do that. I just simply was reminded every time I looked up, I was like, is the work that I'm doing helping to change the world? Is it helping to change children? And so a year to the day, I ended up on the cover, I don't know where my book is at, the cover of the New York Times. And that picture, remember, is like the cover of the Forbes magazine. So what I ultimately manifested was myself on a cover. And so this was the cover of the New York Times article. And what was so inspiring about being in it is that every time the New York Times wrote about Brownsville, they wrote about it in such a negative way. And for the first time, they wrote a positive story. And the New York Times is very influential around the world. So that was like the first beginning, right? And then I said, okay, so that's 2013, 2014. So 2014, December 27th, I sit on the floor and my coach said to me, you have too many big ideas. And the problem is that you can't contain it on one board. You have to literally create a book. So I'm going to say this, don't jump and start a book if you haven't tried to put down on a board yet, because the book is a very powerful place and you have to know how to be reflective and channel your energy, and it takes work. But just quickly, Karen, I'm just going to show people. So 2015, I was just determined to make it my year, right? So I have all these things. 2015 is mine. I put in there that I'm going to write my own story. I'm going to be published. You see the word published there. Mm-hmm. I put down I'm going to be in a TED Talk. I put down that I'm going to travel the world. I do all of these things. I put that I'm going to be the best in class in education. And it was just my audacity. I'm going to be the world's visionary. And I'm going to be the voice for voice of children. Right? This is December 27th. January 15th, 2015, my story goes viral on every social site from Humans of New York. And what was interesting is that even in this picture, there was a woman named Samantha Power. She was the U.S. ambassador for Department of Ed, for under Obama's administration. This same year in 2015, I get an award with Samantha Powers at Barnard College, the Medal of Distinction. And everything since then, I've been able to accomplish. Like this whole book on the other side. So this is us. This is my medal. This is me receiving it. This whole entire book are all the things that I've been able to manifest from the book. Me meeting President Obama, you know, all of the things. So getting back to the journal, I would write down the things I want to accomplish and then have to create plans for it, because you just can't say, I want to do something. I want to be the voice of children. Okay, so what does that look like? How are you going to do that? So for me, writing it down was, I want to create programming for children. I want to start magazines that features our children. I want to start doing videography that's going to tell their stories. And I would write it down. And then who are those people that I need to connect with? So who's the videographer? What programs am I going to put into the school? Who am I going to pay to do that? Or who am I going to partner? So it forces you to think about the process. And that's something that Karen, you and I spoke about, is that in order to manifest these things, right? You can have a mentor, you can have a sponsor, but are you in a place of understanding and trusting the process? And so for many of you who are on this call, I want to say to you, be encouraged, right? Because I showed you all of those things. I'm going to go back to the one from 2012. This board, because the stuff started to manifest once I got specific, the book deal didn't come until 2015. The Lopez effect didn't come until 2014 when I bought it and as a website, and then I started my own business. I was on the same stage as Oprah at Essence Fest 20 minutes before she was on stage. So I was like a headliner and I had no idea she was coming after me. And when I got off the stage and she was there, I wanted to faint, because I was just like, I spoke to the same amount of people and I was able to inspire people around education as I had put down on my vision board. So I want you to know it's a process. I want you to know that nothing happens overnight. I want you to know that dream big, but be willing to do the work, build relationships, talk to people, learn from people. Don't look at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, all the things, and think that people's lives are perfect. It's a snapshot. But when I share on Instagram and Facebook, I talk about the hardships that I've had to encounter, because oftentimes people are afraid to tell their truth. So don't be afraid, because your truth is your testimony, and your testimony is the most powerful thing that you have. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but.
You know what? I love the fact that you have answered so many questions, and there was no way that I was going to interrupt you, because everything that you said is absolutely relevant. I just want you to say a little bit more, because you alluded to the fact that actually this isn't really for you. Mm-hmm. This is ultimately for the children. How does your vision, your accomplishments, how does that impact on the lives of the children, the opportunities for children?
Because I'm able to show what's possible, right? And I'm able to believe in what's possible. My own process of having to get mentors, my own process of having to go through trials and tribulations, failures that lead to successes, it helps me because it grounds me. Because then when I'm dealing with children, I realize they need mentors. They need some type of direction. They need to understand the process. They need to see how hard I'm working. Because as adults, I'm a parent, right? I have an 18-year-old daughter in college. And so if I don't show her how hard I have to work, the sacrifices I make, she's just going to think everything came easy. And she's going to think she doesn't have to work nearly as hard as I do. So I'm very transparent about that because, you know, we want to make our children's lives better. And there's some illusion to that. And then when they get to a certain age and they don't see things manifest, they get very, very frustrated. And they start to believe that they're not good enough. They start to believe that nothing will ever come their way, or maybe they should change the decision that they made without actually putting in the work and having someone to cheerlead them and say, no, you can do this. You just have to take time, or you can do this. And maybe we just need to come up with an effective plan. So the children who have come up under me, who are now adults, who many of which I still mentor, I make sure that they still come with me to places. I will take them to events if I have access. I will send them places. Like if I travel, I've taken some of them with me just because my experience for myself is not just for me. I want them to see the world. I want them to see what's possible, right? And then when you see it and you feel it, it gives you some type of, for me, like it gives you this power and this ownership that, oh my God, I can do it too. Because I'm really no different. I might have more followers than many, but I'm really around the way girl, woman that, you know, has come up in a way that I'm very humble about what I've received. I'm very grateful for it. But I truly believe that the younger generation, you all are the ones whose shoulders that, you know, you may be standing on my shoulders to get to the next place, but there's such a gap in generations. And I find that a lot of young people are feeling defeated because they're not being paved the way of how they can be successful. And so, you know, that comes with depression, that comes with anxiety and all of these things because you fear what you don't know without someone just simply saying, there's a way we can do this together because I'm never going to let you fail.
And so slightly shifting towards just sharing your experiences of and your contribution to Black Lives Matter in the US.
Mm-hmm. You know, so every day, all day, Black Lives Matter in my life. And the reason I say that is because even in creating a school, it really was to prove that children who have been marginalized, who come from communities that have been forgotten, they matter. And until they're given the resources and until they're prioritized, there's going to be a system that believes that they should go to prison. So when I say I opened a school to close a prison, I was willing to be disruptive and I was willing to show up and call out all of the systems that are comprised of people who intentionally try to make sure that we're not successful. And it doesn't matter what color, because I've dealt with Black people who have been the culprits themselves, but it's about making sure that I give voice to those who have been the oppressors. And then there's sometimes people who are so internally oppressed, they don't even realize that they're oppressing others. But most recently, because of what's happening in the United States, I mean, to be honest, it's not anything new that we're experiencing. It's just because we're dealing with COVID and we've all been on lockdown in our homes. It's the visuals, we're constantly seeing it, so it's heightened, but it's been an issue that we've had to deal with for decades. And so at our school, I already had started initiatives to address issues of police brutality, of racism, of lack of equity, trying to get children financially supported and them developing and understanding around wealth. So that came through I Matter, because at some point I felt like our young men didn't know that they mattered, because the images kept saying that their lives were invaluable. Their lives were not valuable when you're taking it so easily. So I wanted them to reaffirm that they mattered to themselves, because oftentimes when I started my Brother's Keeper back in 2010, when I started the school, what ended up happening, men weren't jumping at the opportunity of supporting other young Black men because they had never been taught how to keep themselves. So it's virtually impossible for you to ask somebody to mentor someone if they've never been mentored and they don't know how to mentor. So I had to figure out how to remix it and reaffirm to the young men, how do you wake up each morning knowing that you matter? How do you navigate this world that creates images that says that you're not valuable, that you're going to enter industries where you're underrepresented and you'll be the only Black face in the place? How do you know that despite the statistics that you're constantly seeing that speaks to how you're not validated in this world, that you still matter? You have to say it to yourself and you have to believe it. And when you do that, that builds a sense of confidence. So we did that. And then She Is Me was about bringing Black women into spaces, or women of color, to empower our young girls as well. And then inclusivity, because we have LGBTQ community, right? We have young people who are non-gender conforming and non-binary that don't need to be further marginalized within our community. So we started a tribe called Us. And so all of these things have been directed towards making sure that we as a people are empowered. And so recently, because people start hearing my voice, are like, oh, can you speak to us? And I spoke at an event. And I don't know, it's something about when I go into places, sometimes I black out when I'm speaking. And so, I wanted people to know that they needed to show up, that education for me is a form of mass destruction, right? You can either use it for good, to empower, or you can use it to destroy. When you fail to teach us our history and you fail to teach us about how great of contributions we made to this world, or we're always constantly using the textbooks and curriculum that's not made for us, then you're using it to destroy. So I've been disruptive in how we do our curriculum in our school, but also just being in the community and being a voice for those who need it.
I really like the phrase that you use, disrupting the system, and it sounds like anarchy, and it sounds like something that we shouldn't be encouraging, but just define disrupting the system.
So disrupting the system is really calling out the things that are oppressive, but also being in a position of wanting to find solutions. So it's easy for me to say because I do it all the time. So for instance, if I'm in a community like Brownsville where children are living in generational poverty, knowing this, it's important for me to teach them financial literacy and entrepreneurship, even though they're 11 to 14 years old. It is my responsibility for them to understand the importance of generating wealth, because the blocks that we have in our community are considered $1 million blocks, not because of the values of the home, but the values of their bodies. They contribute to an $80 billion industry because of the fact that their bodies are worth millions of dollars by going into the prison system. So I have to make sure that I am teaching them information about generating wealth at a young age and learning how to save and the importance of college. So now I have kids who are going to college. I have children who are literally getting jobs and massing, some type of income that they want to generate wealth in the future. So what I've literally done is disrupt part of the system that was intended for them to fail.
And so I want people to have a look at She Did That on Netflix, with featuring, which is just about Black female entrepreneurship, but actually everybody can learn from that one. So I just want other people now, I want our audience to have an opportunity to ask some questions. But before we go to that, can I ask you what next? Because you've spoken about the past, you've spoken about the present. What do you see yourself doing from here? What's on your vision board for later on?
Well, my vision is really about investing in my company and focusing on my company already being a startup, but making sure that I'm really focused on the storytelling aspect and providing consultation beyond the school building that I created, because there's such a need for educators and there's such a need for young people, that I want to make sure that millennials, anyone, that they get the support that they need. So that's really my focus. This past week, I literally launched my own network on YouTube. That's right. And I think big and I don't say things small at all. And the reason why I do that is because the network that I'm creating allows me to tell multiple stories in different avenues. And we have to claim what we want. So I was often waiting for people to contact me for interviews, right? Because there's not a lot of women of color, especially leaders or anyone who's opened up a school who's a Black woman who can actually speak to all of the work that I've done. And yet I still have to fight to be that representative. I still have to prove myself, and I don't have to. So I could create my own platform and start telling my own stories and not have to wait for someone's permission, not have to wait for anyone's sponsorship. Let me do it myself. So I created a YouTube channel. It's called the Lopez Network. And so there's different tiers of it. So right now I've been just rolling out things as it pertains to Mott Hall Bridges Academy, but there will be additional layers because I have elevated. As you know, it's part of the conference, but Monique and I are always sharing our Thrive in 5, which allows people to learn about strategies that helps with sustainability. So this past week, we talked about how you can actually promote yourself. And last week was like how you can be a sponsor and promote other people who are on the come up, who need their information shared and make connections and resources and all these things. So that's my next endeavor, and really also just focusing about my health and wellness. I want to say to everyone who's out there, I believe in therapy. Therapy should not be a stigma. It helps you to unpack all of the things that you've dealt with, because we as people of color, we are traumatized in so many ways without realizing that we have experienced trauma. It does not mean that you had to be abused in your life. That's not what this is about. You could just step into your workspace, and the fact that people don't honor who you are, you try to get recognized, you try to get a promotion, you're working 10 times harder, you're not taking care of yourself, you start to internalize those things. And so it's very, very important that you take care of your mental wellness, because then it will then manifest in a negative way, which I've learned the hard way, physically. Stress can kill. I don't care what age you're at. And no one should ever shame you for wanting to take care of your mind, your body, your spirit, and all the things in between.
Cool. And so just to finish, I need you to close on the key takeaways in finding a mentor, sponsor, helping to grow from them, and also figuring out how to move on from them.
So I don't remember any of the things that I say. That's why I usually have to watch the stuff that I say. But what I will say is this. I hope that in this conversation, you were inspired, you take something away, and understand that, again, we do not grow in isolation. We grow in relationships. And the first thing I want you all to do is to get a journal. If you don't have a journal, use your phone, use your notepad in your phone. Write down the things you want to accomplish. You may have it written down already. The second thing I want you to do is take a deep breath. And the reason why I'm telling you to take a deep breath is because you cannot put a time limit on when you're supposed to accomplish the thing. Because what we end up doing is we write the stuff down, and the second thing is, so by next week, I have to accomplish the thing. No, take a deep breath. Because when you take the deep breath, you then have to get ready for your self-reflection. When you write down a goal, it's called self-actualization. It's the place you want to see yourself, right? But you have to reflect about where you currently are in your life. And when you do that, it is okay to see that you have gaps. It is okay for you to realize, oh my God, I haven't accomplished a lot. That's fine. You got time. No one is rushing you but you. You have parents. I know what it's like. I went to school to be a nurse, and my mother was like, you're going to be a nurse when you graduate college. And I went through 4 years, and then I graduated, and I was like, I'm going to work for the phone company. And she wanted to die. She was like, what are you saying? Because that's not what I wanted. Sometimes we choose the very things that our parents want for us rather than what we pick for ourselves. Sometimes we allow society to dictate who we're supposed to be because of the need to be socially accepted. You have to love yourself. You have to love yourself for your wholeness, not for what anybody else wants for you, because they're not going to live your life. They're not going to go through the stress. They don't have to deal with the drama. They're not going to give you the money. So sometimes you have to gently tell people, mind their business, but in a very nice way. I love you, but I don't want to hear from you. Or sometimes just don't share with certain people. You know who those individuals are. Mm-hmm. But just love on yourself, be reflective. And then the same way I said that you have to see where you're at, those gap areas, that becomes the focus areas. So if I say I want to own a house, but my bank account says I only have $1,000, I can't think about owning a house. So what's my gap? I need to figure out how to create income that's going to increase. I need to reflect on, maybe I need a new job. Maybe I need to move back home with my parents so I could save money, whatever it is. But that allows you to create your action plan. Once you have those things, you can definitely meet your goals. And it could take 2 years, it could take 3 years, but be okay with that. Because at the end of the day, you want to live a life of happiness. You want to live a life that's fulfilled, but you do not want to live for someone else to make them happy, because you're not their priority. If they indeed made you their priority, they would tell you it's okay to take time.
Nadia, Dr. Nadia Lopez, thank you so much. I hope that all of you have been inspired to action. I would really like you to now make sure, if you're not doing so already, to follow us on Instagram, and that's InsightsOTR, and on Twitter, Insights_OTR. Thank you very much. And those of you who are now hooked on Dr. Nadia Lopez, there are a million ways in which you will be able to follow her new ventures and some of her old ventures too. So thank you very much for being here with us today.